Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to A Course in Linux. Now, where do you even begin? A lot of people will know or have heard about Linux as being an alternative operating system to Windows and Apple. But for those who have wanted to try it, there isn't very much in the way of base level tutorial out there, and that's what this video series is aimed at. Now, the reasons for people wanting to come to Linux are usually because they want to come off whatever they've been using for whatever reason. There's a variety of reasons, and those reasons have changed over time because things keep changing, and yeah, Linux is no different in that respect. Linux keeps changing as well. In fact, one of the things that people new to the platform have to contend with is that there is so much choice and so many decisions to make. It's no surprise that some people find it a bit daunting that they've got to make so many decisions when all they really want to do is get on with using the computer. But it is sadly true that there is quite a bit of a learning curve. Now, I've made a few choices for you here. One of them being that I'm going to be presenting in this series Linux Mint and also Ubuntu, which are two different flavors or distributions of Linux. You'll find many different versions out there, and that's because Linux, like many fruits, nuts, they contain a kernel, and that kernel is then surrounded by various different things, and that kernel is Linux, and then the graphics and the rest of it can be tuned, which results in many different distributions. Now, we're going to start with Linux Mint because it's the most Windows-like to a degree. And over the course of this, you're going to have to make decisions at some point. And in order to make those decisions, you need information. But I don't want to overload you with information or history. It's enough for you to just know the very basics. And if you want to go deeper, you can do. And indeed, you'll find that because I am trying to keep things simple, there's an awful lot that I'm omitting and simplifying. But, this is just to get you familiar with the operating system. Now, like most operating systems, this one starts by asking you for a password. I'm not going through the installation routine. You can get someone more knowledgeable to install the system for you. But yeah, this is pretty much how it goes. So you can see we're at a logon screen here. This is Linux Mint Cinnamon, by the way. Even within Linux Mint, there are different variations like Mate. But this is Cinnamon, which has a nice graphical user interface for you. And you can see on this logon screen you have the machine name. You also have on the right hand side the time. You have various keyboard and accessibility settings that you can use, and you also have power off from here if you wish. But we are going to put in a very simple password and log on. And I hope you're going to hear something here, which is the startup music. I hope you'll forgive me looking off to the side because I've got to make sure that this is still recording. Yeah. So here we are. I've deliberately kept the installation simple because there's a few extra things that you're going to need to know. And we're going to go through some of the basics. Because pretty much when you start off with this, it's going to be a case of learning where things are and getting familiar with with the operating system and how to change many of the settings, many of the common settings, before we get on to some of the power and the applications. Now you can see we've got a welcome to Linux Mint here. You also have a show this dialog at startup down here, so if you want to click it away, you can do. But you've got some useful stuff in here. First steps, you have your desktop colors. Choose a color you prefer, and you can see a few things changing, but we're going to keep this with the Linux Mint green. You have panel layout. Now there is a modern one, which is what it's currently on, which is a panel with grouped windows and a small system tray. Now what grouped windows means is if you've got more than one copy of the same application running, it'll all compress all three into the same icon on the tray. Many people don't like that, so you may want to go for the traditional, which is a small panel and a traditional window, and you can see that it's just changed as I clicked on it. There are system snapshots. There are automatic system snapshots if you want. I don't use it. You've got a driver manager. We'll come on to the driver manager. Multimedia codecs we'll come on to. An update manager, because all systems need updating. System settings, so you can have a look at the system settings and configure the operating system. And you've got a software manager, and you've also got a firewall, and those are all launchable by the welcome screen. I don't use them via this. So indeed, I normally do a lot of changes after I first installed something. So yeah, I don't... I'm going to actually have to do a bit of poking around here, because a lot of things I just install the operating system, run a script that I've written, and poof, it's done. It's as I want it. But this is going to be fresh, so I'm going to have to do a bit of poking around as well. Documentation. If you click launch, it will launch a copy of a browser, which will take you to the documentation. So if you want to pause the video and take down that URL, which takes you to various documentation here. So you've got an installation guide through that. You've got a user guide, which is a collection of articles to help you configure your system, and you can download that in English in various formats. You've got a troubleshooting guide, a translation guide, and a developer guide. So probably the most useful you'll find is the user guide, which will take you through a number of things. So there you go. You've also got help, and what you'll typically find is that the web forums themselves are probably going to be the most useful place where you'll get help from. And yeah, you can also look in here to see if someone has had the same trouble that you've had, in order to find out how they've solved it. And you can search the forums as well. Searching and discovering things, you do it for Windows. People do it for Windows. They have a problem, so they've got to do a search in order to find somebody else who's had the same problem. And it's the same with Mint. Because after all, how many people have actually got a support subscription with Microsoft? Yeah, not many. And if you want to contribute to the project, I am a contributor, and I've contributed more to Mint than I would have paid in Microsoft licenses, which probably tells you how much I use the system. Now, you'll immediately see that this is very familiar territory. Down at the bottom right, you have the clock. You also have, if you're using the calendar, it can show you your events. You have date and time settings in here, in which you can control various things, like your date and time, where you are. You can use the 24-hour clock or not. Display the date. As you can see, it changed down the bottom right, or not. Display the seconds, and you've got control over your first day of the week. So that's fairly straightforward from there. You also have, if you right-click on it, configure, and that gives you a few more. You can show the calendar events or not, So if you're not using the calendar, that won't pop up at the side. You can show the number of weeks in the calendar, use a custom date format, you've got all sorts. And you've got the Super C. These are shortcuts. And the Super button is the Windows key. So if I was to close this now and just press Super C, up pops the calendar from the keyboard shortcut. Hey ho. You do have power settings, brightness settings, which you can alter, and this is where you enter some relatively straightforward stuff, which is turn off the screen when it's inactive, suspend the machine when it's inactive, or when the power button is pressed, what's it going to do? And you also have brightness, which you have various settings for as well. Next you have the audio settings, which is volume, and also when you're playing something, the player will be integrated here, so you haven't got to faff around finding the player. You can just go for that, because the loudspeaker will change to a little music note icon, and there you can access it there. You can also switch your output device. We're actually going via HDMI, the graphics card, so I can capture it, but we've also got built-in audio as well. So a lot of stuff is actually relatively is easy to find. Network settings, wired and wireless. This motherboard has a wireless section, so we'll just turn that off because we don't, but you could see that wireless points were starting to appear, and you've got your network settings and your connections. So if you want to change your network settings, your IP addresses, whatever, you can do it easily from there. Your user profile, from which you can log out, power off from here. I don't usually use that. System settings will come to. You have the update manager, because everything needs updating pretty much. And yeah, security updates, and you can set it up. So you say OK to that, and it's going to process the updates. It's going to ask a few questions, one of which is in the blue. Do you want to switch to a local mirror? Now, packages.linuxmint.com, I'm not sure where that is. So I can actually switch to a local mirror. It's going to ask me my password. It does that an awful lot, like Apple. If you're doing anything which can change the system in any meaningful way, it'll ask you to prove who you are by asking you for your password. Here we go. The main is in America, and the base focal is in the UK. So we're just going to change that one to UK dedicated servers. Oh, well, actually we've got a slightly better from the University of Kent. So we're going to make that our main software source. Now, a software source is, if you think about a library where you borrow books, a software source, or a repository, as it's known, as you can see there, is where you can borrow software, only you don't have to borrow it, you just copy it and run it. So a repository, a software repository, is like a library, a book library, only for software, and that's where an awful lot of the software will come. So we've changed it, and it just needs to refresh itself, and it's now talking with University of Kent in order to get a list of what books are on offer at the library. So there we have that one. Now that is going to say a new version of the update manager is available. Yes, we'll go and get it. Who are you? Prove who you are again. You'll find this for a while once you actually get a new system running, and the update manager will give us loads of updates, which I'm not going to apply now. There's all sorts of bits and pieces that need to be updated. We'll come back to that later. Then we have the system reports. It was down in the tray, like a clipboard with an exclamation mark, that sort of icon there that you can see. Now, install hardware drivers. It knows that I've got an NVIDIA graphics card in here. So it's saying, do you want to launch it? I'm not at the moment. Install the language packs. So there's localization packages. We're going to go get that. That's probably going to ask for the password again. Additional software to be installed. Yep, we'll continue with that. This happens a lot when you're setting the system up. The other thing is the codecs, multimedia codecs. Now, this is normally an install option. So when you're installing Linux of various flavors, it will normally ask during the installation process if you want to install the multimedia codecs. If you don't and you miss it, you can do it here. And that's necessary because open source software can't ship with certain closed source or proprietary software itself. So you have to go and get it after. And multimedia codecs are what allow you to view some video formats and listen to some audio formats. So you typically have to install the multimedia codecs. So over it goes. It's going to remove one codec and replace it with loads of others. Yeah. Continue. And we're going to ignore the setup the system restore utility. This is only going to take a few more moments. Eventually. Running system checks again to catch up with the changes. And then the system restore utility. Like if you're using Windows, you'll know that you can take snapshots of the system to return back to after major changes. And you can do that here as well. And it's called time shift. We're not going to engage it here. And the system information will give you quite detailed information of what is in your system. You can see what we're running. The machine is an ASRock motherboard, together with a model with a model number. The CPU, an AMD A10, which is the A10 Black Edition. Not very powerful. There's Radeon HD graphics on the chip, but we have an extra NVIDIA card in there as well. And audio, network, and all the rest of it. It's quite a bit of information. And if there happens to be a crash report, there's a crash report that you can send for help with. Now, then we've got Bluetooth, which on this system I usually turn off on a desktop because not typically needed. But it's there, and you can use Bluetooth. There happens to be Bluetooth on this particular motherboard. It can come in handy. So that covers the right-hand side, which actually covers an awful lot of daily functions. Your volume, your brightness, your network connection, any updates, date and time, the usual stuff that you're going to go for. And that's there. It's worth playing around with that and getting used to it. The other thing is on the volume, if you right click, if you left click, you've got sound settings, which gives you an awful lot more. So you can see you've got output here, and there's also the option to test the sound.
Front, left, right. Front, left, front, right.
That took a bit of time to start off. It's not the fastest processor in the world. Any input devices like microphones or anything you've got. Sounds. This is where you'll find the sounds that play. For example, when you start or leave, switch workspace, and you can turn them off or change them. If any applications are playing audio, they will turn up here. And then you have some settings. We're at 100%, but you could go off and amplify the output if you wished. Good luck with that one. So there's quite a lot of functionality down in the bottom right-hand corner. In the bottom left, you have the usual. You have a menu system. You also have another button which will hide and show the desktop. If I just start a couple of things up here and then hide and show. And then you have some startup applications, quick links, Firefox, Terminal, and Files, a file browser. And then you have the usual things up at the top left, which is effectively the computer and the home. The home will open up a file browser to your home area, and the computer will open up the computer area where you can actually see the devices. And we have the file system the root file system. We have the hard drive, can't mount it because it's mounted as the file system, and we have a CD-ROM in here, which if we right click, we have options such as eject, so I could actually eject it from here. So you have those, and you have the usual kind of menu system here with, again, the quit, shutdown, log out, lock, and a few other things like files, terminals, system settings, software manager, and Firefox web browser. And you can add things or remove them by dragging them and dropping them in. Let's, for example, just put Rhythm Box in here, and there it goes. So you can add things in here as you wish to a degree. Applications are in a few different sections. You have accessories, and accessories you have an archive manager, calculator, and just to show calculator I could drop that down here if I wish, and that will, whoops, where did that go? That was too slow, I think. There you go. So you can drop things down in there. You have disks, which will show you what disks you've got inside and how the partitions are going. That's the equivalent of your disk management. You have a document viewer, which is a PDF viewer. Now, in previous some operating systems, you've got to load extra software in order to have this stuff, but it's installed here straight out of the box. Multiple file renamer, files, fonts, image viewer, onboard passwords and keys, screenshot, which is also triggered by your print screen, usually a simple text editor. This is where you can format and write images to USB sticks. That's sometimes a bit difficult to do in some operating systems, but you can use those in here. You have a virtual keyboard warpinator. What the heck is... Oh, send and receive files across the network. Never heard of that. That's a new one on me. Graphics. You have a document scanner. So if you've got a scanner attached, you can use that to bring things in, drawing and pics. Where's GIMP? GIMP isn't there for some reason. We'll have to sort that out. You have various things for the internet. Thunderbird Mail. Email client, transmission for BitTorrent files, because not all BitTorrent is illegal. Firefox web browser, and Hex chat if you're into internet relay chat. For Office, we have LibreOffice. Now, some distributions come with OpenOffice, but there's a bit of history behind that. For many years, back in the 80s, 90s, there were the Microsoft Word Office suite competing with others, and eventually the Microsoft one you have to pay for, and there's a few others and that changed, and eventually you had OpenOffice. OpenOffice was a free version backed by a company called Sun Microsystems, but Sun were bought out by another company called Oracle, and Oracle had a bit of a reputation, so people said we're not happy with this. So the OpenOffice project forked to create a new project and became LibreOffice. Libre as in more free from the ethos, as much as free as in you don't have to pay for it. You didn't have to pay for OpenOffice either, but if you've got the two, LibreOffice is the one that seems to be getting the most attention and the most regular updates. So it's good to see that LibreOffice comes as standard on this, and you've got Writer for your standard documents, Calc, which is the equivalent of Excel, Impress, which is the equivalent of PowerPoint. Then you've got Math, Draw, and Base, which is the equivalent of a database. Sound and video, there's not much installed. Celluloid for playing videos, Rhythm Box for playing audio. You've got some administration here. This is pretty useful, the Disk Usage Analyzer, and that allows you to see what's going on. So I'll ask for the home folder, and you can see how much is in use in any particular folder. there's very little in usage here because this is a base install. But if you wanted to find out, you're faced with a drive and you need to know how much is in each of them, this is an easy way to find out. The equivalent for this would be Tree Size or Tree Size Pro on Windows. But Tree Size Pro goes into more detail than this does. This just gives you the basics. Tree Size Pro will give you a lot of information on how old files are and all that stuff. This is a nice basic tool to see how much data is in various areas of the hard drive. So if you're running low on space, you can find out where the worst is. You also have the login window, logs, power statistics, printers, which is pretty useful, software management, which we'll come on to in a bit, software sources, which we've sort of touched on. You have a system monitor, which is sort of the equivalent of the task manager. So you can see what's in use here, very little, and what file systems are mounted. And you can also, I think you can actually stop processes from here as well. Yeah, if you absolutely had to. Also, system reports, terminal, time shift, which we saw before, the update manager, which we saw before, and users and groups. You have preferences, which is quite useful for some people, including accessibility, account details, applets, which we'll come to again, backgrounds, so you can set your background up, Bluetooth, date and time, desklets. So you actually have various desklets that you can load, digital photo frame, that sort of things. And there's more that you can download if you wish. So there's all sorts of things. Notes, so you've got a desklet to display sticky notes on top of your desktop. Why? There's a cryptocurrency ticker. There's all sorts of stuff that you can add to your desktop. A desktop calculator. Yeah. Desktop note, desklet. There's numbers of different ones. You can see some of the ratings that some of them have got in order to judge whether they're useful. Disk space. Let's just add this one. Let's add that one. Download it and see what it says. So we've got that added. Manage disk space. Configure. Where is it? I was expecting the desklet to pop up. Add. Oh, I've got to add it. There you go. So that shows you how much disk space is left. So you've got file system to monitor. So you can monitor different file systems. Monitor a system or file. Oh, you've got the RAM usage. So you've got all sorts of different bits and pieces that you can do here, and you can add in different desklets to give you visibility of things. I'm just going to turn that off, I think. Oh, minus. There it goes. So you've got loads of little bits and pieces under here to play with. You've obviously got the display. Now the display is important if you've got more than one display running, because that will give you, obviously we've only got the one here, so you can change your resolution. This is 1920 by 1080, refresh rate, and if you've got more than one, you can move the monitors in relation to each other, so which is on the left, which is on the right, or even above and below. Unfortunately, I can't show you that, and you can select which one and set as primary. You've also got mirror displays, and the usual kind of thing that you'd have. You can rotate the displays counterclockwise. If I applied that would be fun. There you go. That's awkward. My mouse isn't working properly. Restore the previous configuration. So if you've got a vertical display, you can do that to a display, and you can merge the displays together as you wish. Okay, so what happened there was that messing around with the video rotation actually threw a wobbler. So where were we? Display. Effects, extensions, font selection, general, graphics tablet. If you have a graphics tablet, I'd probably say use Wacom. Some of the others have issues, and that is one of the problems that you'll find with Linux, in that some of the manufacturers will come out with support software for Windows and Mac, but not necessarily Linux, and that includes companies like Logitech. The mouse control software is Windows only. If you've got any fancy RGB keyboards or anything, you may find that the software is Windows only and doesn't work. So typically, yeah, it's a good idea to check whether things are actually working with Linux. Things are starting to change as the gaming side of things changes a bit. Then more manufacturers are starting to get on board, but it's taking a while. Some of the others of these are also in the settings side of things. So mouse and touchpad settings, they are there, and like Windows, there's a few ways to get at these. So you can see the usual button inversion, pointer size and speed. Let's just increase it a bit. There you go. That'll make it easier for you to see things on screen. I don't usually do that. Double click timeout you've got. If you've got a touchpad, you can enable it. Tap to click if you want to. And you've got reverse scrolling directions. And I think there's scrolling method. You've got 2-finger and edge scrolling options available to you. So if you like to, I think there's pinch to zoom also in some of them. Automatic horizontal scrolling, custom acceleration and sensitivity if you want. That's there for you. But one of the other things that we have, we'll come to a chunk of these. You've got power management in there. Your preferred applications is interesting. I actually came through a lot of these previously before I realized that it had actually killed the video. So yeah, there's not a lot of applications in here now, but you can see your preferred applications for various things, and removable media. I actually turned this off previously, but you can tell it what to do when an audio CD, video, DVD goes in, when a music player is connected, other media, what to do. I just typically turn that off, but that's where you'll find that. The other thing that we have, Linux has had it for quite some time, is the workspace. Now, a workspace is a virtual work area. I think Windows 10 started to catch up. There was an additional piece of software you could install for this, but typically when you install a number of Linux distributions, it will automatically install 4 workspaces for you. Like on this workspace, this is number 1. You can see nothing on here to give you the hint that you've got multiple workspaces. And that is why we usually come to the applets, and under the applets you have workspace switcher, and if you add that applet, you will see in the bottom right, oh, we're actually on workspace 4. Oh, brilliant. You can see these 4 things that have started down here, and yeah, they are 4 different windows. And I'm just going to test some music. Am I going to test some music? No. I don't know how I'm going to test something. I think audio is happening. I will just test something. Yes. Oh, yeah, desktop audio is happening, but it may be a bit delayed because of the capture method I'm using. So you can see that there's 4 workspaces down here. And if I'm on workspace 1 now, so I'm going to start Firefox. I'm going to switch to workspace number 2. And start terminal session. Number 3, start a file browser. Number 4, start the calculator, for example. So these workspaces are typically there already, and you can see this in action by holding down Control and Alt together, and with those 2 buttons held down you can use the left and right cursor keys on the keyboard to switch between workspaces. and that'll tell you what's going on. And there are various options that you can use in here for configure, and you can manage your workspaces, and you can actually add workspaces if you wish, or delete them, and do various bits and pieces. I can delete that one, and automatically you can see that it's starting to bring the applications up there, and we'll just click that one and we're back there. So I can just close these and go back to workspace 1, and now we've only got 2 workspaces. But yeah, workspaces are pretty useful in some cases. Yeah. So you've pretty much got everything under here. Under the system settings, you have everything pretty much here you'd expect. Your backgrounds, which you can choose from. You've also can go into the pictures folder to pick up any pictures. You have effects which go on, which are the system effects. You've got themes. Accessibility is interesting. You've got all the usual stuff like high contrast, screen reader, typing assistance, but another one is this enable zoom function. Enable this and you've got a mouse wheel modifier. So Alt, I can hold down Alt and use the scroll wheel on the mouse to zoom in. And now you can see what's going on. Everything on the screen is magnified, and it is application independent, so you can pretty much do what you like here. Magnification currently 1.8, bring it out, it's 1.0 now. The other thing that you've got is lens mode, and if you use lens and scroll in, it gives you a lens view on what you're scrolling over, as opposed to scrolling the whole screen. And again, that is operating system in level, so you can, whatever application you're using, you can use that with. And also you've got the few mouse keys, you've got typing assistance with sticky keys, slow keys, bounce keys, you've got a virtual keyboard that you can, you got audio and visual alerts, indicators on caps and numlock. You've got quite a few accessibility options in there. And like an idiot, instead of going back, I closed it. Applets we've just been in. You've got your account details, extensions, desklets. Hot corners is something that you may want to turn off. You can enable corners to do all things like show all workspaces. So this corner is now enabled, and show all windows, show the desktop, run a command. So you can even tell it the command to run. I'm just going to show all workspaces to show it in use. Boom. Up in that corner, hot corner is enabled, and that's done. Imagine being able to run a command when you point the mouse up to a certain corner. Pretty powerful. And you've obviously got languages. Preferred applications have been through screensaver, straightforward, Windows tiling, workspaces, Windows, notifications. You got hardware, Bluetooth, again, you got a lot of stuff, mouse and touchpad, display we've been through, disks, sound, system info. It's pretty much all here. The login window is an interesting one for many people, because here, I think it's here, you can actually turn off some of the options for logon. So allow manual login, hide the user list, automatic login. If you put an automatic login in here, it will automatically log the system in as the user who's in the username. So yeah, automatic login will fail if the user's home directory is encrypted. So as long as you haven't chosen to encrypt the home directory, which I never do, because trying to recover from a naft system is a pain in the a. You can bypass the login screen by telling it the username, and it will immediately log in as that user on startup, and that's a useful thing for some people. Some people prefer that. And you've also got various other panel indicators that are shown on login and the clock format. So that's that one. Shall we go into software sources? Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the next one. Software Manager is also up here. Now, I don't use this one. I use a different software manager. In fact, I'll show you what happens when we put CDs and stuff in. I happen to have a CD here with some files on it. I'm just going to put it in. Where's the eject button? Down there. Hello, computer. You're going to give me the CD? Can't see the button. Oh. Pressing totally the wrong button. You can see you've got various software manager up here, editors, picks, categories for what you're looking after. And at some point we should see up here the CD appear after it's read it. Yeah, this A10 processor is not the fastest. So there you go. We've put in some media here, and there it is. I'm also going to put in a USB stick, and I'm going to move some files. I'm going to show you how that works. So let's have a look. There's the hole. One thing that's useful is working out how the file system works, because it doesn't work on drive letters like Windows does. It works from the root. The best I can explain it is if you imagine a tree which starts at the roots and then goes up and then goes off into branches. And what you're effectively doing is, when you're attaching media, you're attaching another set of branches into the tree. And then when you remove media, you're removing those branches. And it does make things easier with a lot of bookmarks. As you can see, home, which is your home directory. And you've got other things like your desktop, any documents, downloads, music, pictures, public, templates and videos. Pretty much as you've seen before. Now I'm just going to move some stuff. I'm going to move a video. Which video? 2021. We're going to move that because that contains some videos. And you should see, there you go, you get a copy system up there. While that's running, I'm going to show you something, because I'm also going to copy some music over. Some YouTube music. You can see now that this is queued. It's doing that, and it's waiting for that to finish before it does that. Some people find that annoying, and you will find that in, I think it's under File Properties. Under File Properties? Or is it Edit Preferences? Edit Preferences. That's where it is. And you have Behavior. And under here you have the option to disable file operation queuing. That's a useful one. Under here you can also find other behavior, like single or double click to open items. Click on a file's name twice to rename it. Open each folder in its own window, and ignore per folder view preferences, and a few other bits and pieces that you'll see in here, like the display, icon, caption, list columns. You can tell it which columns you want listed if you're in list view, and also what you want to appear in the toolbar. You've got quite a bit of power here. So yeah. So there goes that one. We just got to wait for that to finish. Yeah, I think it takes effect on starting up a new. This isn't what I usually use. This is a file managing system called Nemo. I normally use another one. What do I normally use? What am I normally using? Oh, I am using Nemo. Oh, it's just a different graphic. Yeah, that was interesting. So I am using Nemo. So there you go. That edit preferences. I've just realized that I've actually got a C to make sure that you saw what it was, because it might have been overwritten by my face, but it wasn't. And while we're doing that, we're going to load in some pictures. What will that do? Oh yeah, it's now copying that, and it's doing those in parallel now. And for the documents, I'll load up setup. because that will be able to tell me various things that I've done. The setup is already done. It was that quick. But that's everything in the USB stick. And you can see down here you've got them under devices. Now, what do I mean by the root of the tree? That is the root of the tree. Effectively, consider it to be like the root of your C drive. You've got various folders under here that do different things. Home is where you will find all the home directories for any user who has been installed on the system. So it's the equivalent of the Windows users folder, effectively. And that's where you find all the other folders. But the other ones of use are the media and the mount. MNT is typically where you'd mount, if there were network storage, that's where you'd find it mounted usually. But media is where you would find, for any user, you would find any media that had been mounted, like the CD-ROM and the USB stick, and you can access them through there. So pretty much that's what's going on. A lot of these are like boot, dev, etc., libraries, system, var. You'll find these are more system related rather than anything else typically. The ones that you will typically find of use are the home directories, which is where all your personal files will be stored, and media, which is where any mounted media will be stored. And that's pretty much how it works, which is how I mean it's a tree, and we've effectively mounted these things into that tree. We've mounted it off a branch called Media Michelle, and when we unmount it, it will vanish, it will go, which is typically what we'll do. We will eject that, and there you go, it's gone. And I can also eject the USB stick, and then that will go as well. So there you are, that media is dismounted. But typically you will find it popping up on the left hand side, just to make things easier for you. And you can do the usual right click, multiple select, drag select, right click, cut, copy, and then also paste, and all the rest of that jazz. The usual rules apply, and that includes shift select. So if I had multiple things in here, music, YouTube music, yeah, I could shift select, or I could control select, deselect, just like you do on many other systems. And you could do that to then drag and drop and all the rest of it. And you've got the usual home, desktop, documents, music, pictures, video, downloads, recent. Obviously we haven't opened anything recently that's still mounted. And the rubbish bin. There is one thing that you do need to be aware of, and that is when you right click on something, as well as move to the rubbish bin, you also have the delete option. In fact, there should be a preferences here to actually put the rubbish bin on the desktop, I think. Views, behavior, rubbish bin. Yeah, bypass the rubbish bin when the delete key is pressed. Is it here? Customize. Icon size. Desktop settings. Ah, yeah. There you go. Desktop settings. So there's the rubbish bin. Yeah, mounted drives also show there. If you've got any network drives, it can show them there, and show icons from missing monitors. So you can show desktop icons on primary monitor or on non-primary monitors, all monitors, no desktop icons if you want. You've got that power. So yeah, pretty much going right-clicking, like Windows, right-clicking on an empty area will give you the option to add desklets, create new folders, add desklets, change the desktop background, create a new launcher, open in terminal, or open as root, or customize. And customize is where we got this, and then that's handy. Didn't know that before. As you can see, this is changing the space between the icons. Learn something new every day. They keep adding. And that's where you've got your icon size. And under there was the desktop settings, which is where I got those desktop settings for that. So it really is a case of clicking around and getting used to it and dragging and dropping some files. Yeah, that shouldn't have happened. Now we will actually go to the... you can search for things, so if you know what you're doing, you can do a search up there for anything on the driver manager. And it's looking for the hardware drivers. So it's doing an examination. Oh, printers is what I wanted to show you. Okay. That was my phone. It's currently using an open source video driver, and I could change that to the NVIDIA driver. I'm not going to do it right now because I would have to apply the changes and reboot the system. So yeah. So that is how it knows that there is an NVIDIA card in there. Software Manager. This is an interesting one. This is where you typically can deinstall and reinstall applications. VLC, Firefox, Gparted, the GNOME partition editor. In fact, Gparted isn't installed by default. GIMP, which is your graphics manipulation, the equivalent of Photoshop. Now VLC has quite a following, and you'll find it used by people on Windows and Mac and also Firefox is also, you can see a tick, it's installed. You won't find Internet Explorer or Safari on here, I don't think. Typically the main browsers are Firefox and Chromium. Firefox is the default. Sometimes I do have to use Chromium for things that just won't work in Firefox. Gparted is our partition manager for hard drives, if you're that techie. GIMP is the GNU is the image manipulation program. GIMP. They try to rename it to something else because GIMP has other meanings in other worlds, shall we say. Wine is interesting for some people. We're going through the most common here. That is, it stands for Wine is not an emulator, but it's a Windows API implementation suite. I don't use it that much. Because if you're going Linux, it's better to find the Linux versions of whatever it is that you want to run, rather than just trying to use an emulator to run an application which you'd run under Windows anyway, if you know what I mean. Now, interestingly enough, you'll notice some of these things like VLC, Firefox, GIMP, LibreOffice even, will run under Windows. So if you get fed up of some of the subscription systems that you're having to pay for, you can get this software which will run under Windows natively. You can get Windows versions of this software. FileZilla we'll sort of skip over, but if you send files up and down from websites and things, that's what you need. Audacity is effectively the free in quotes version of Goldwave, an audio editing system. Audacity itself was caught up in a bit of controversy because it was starting to try and capture user behavior and metrics and send them back to the creators because it was effectively bought out-ish by a private company. And then there was such a hoo-ha in amongst the open source community, the Linux community, that they had to backtrack on that. Thunderbird is the email client that comes with it. I don't tend to use it. Inkscape is a vector-based drawing program, pretty good one. K3B, a CD/DVD burning application. Audacious, now that is the audio player that I use. That may spring some memories for people who know Winamp from the early Windows days. Blender. Blender is a good one. It's a free 3D modeler renderer. And if you are into making 3D movies, you will probably know Blender. If you search for films that are made using Blender, I think some of them will surprise you quite a bit, that people are doing these sorts of things with free open source tools. If you're still into instant messaging, you've got Pigeon there for you. For some reason, a lot of people seem to be playing Super Tux Kart, which is a 3D arcade racer. Calibre, easy ebook manager. Cheese, to take video from your webcam. Others, Rhythmbox is another music player. Sound Converter can convert audio files into different formats. Open Arena, fast-paced 3D first-person shooter. Never even played that one, I don't think. Gedit, a text editor. There's a number of things. There's Spotify on there. Transmission, BitTorrent client as well. Evolution, that's the one that I use for email work. Steam, you've got the Steam system on there. Simple Scan, another scanning, that's the default scanning utility. Again, green tick, that's installed. Meld, graphical tool to diff and merge files. Ocular, universal document viewer. Shotwell, digital photo organizer. VirtualBox, that allows you to run virtual an operating system within an operating system. If you really were stuck for Windows, then the best probable thing would be to spark up VirtualBox and install Windows within a VirtualBox. Obviously you need a reasonably powerful machine to do that. We're going to go through some of this stuff. Digicam, digital photo management. That's pretty useful. I use that. I also use Brasero, which is a burning CD/DVD burning tool. A lot of this stuff you'll probably think, oh, I've got that on Windows, but hang on, I had to pay for it. If you had early versions of Windows, you'll realize that, or you'll remember that you had to have software. If you bought a CD or DVD burner, you had to get the software and pay for the license to use that. Eventually some stuff did come out. You've got a Vince PDF viewer, NVIDIA settings, which will be installed when I install the NVIDIA drivers, GwenView, which is an image viewer, WhatsApp, an unofficial WhatsApp desk client, ClawsMail. I have used ClawsMail. I found a few problems with it. Backing up pretty much was my problem, backing up and reinstalling. There is just so much down here that is used for doing all sorts of things. And yeah, where do I even start? Oh, Google Earth is down here. When you become, you got MAME, the arcade machine emulator, and all this stuff, you can just click and install it. You haven't got to pay for anything. You can just install the damn stuff. And one of the things that I do is that under the documents, This I'll open with a text editor, and you can see roughly what goes on. Because I know what I want to do, I can just do an awful lot of things, and that one command will remove a lot of the software that I don't want on there, and this command will install a lot of the system software that I do want on there. There are a few other things that you need to do if you want some support. You have to install some packages if you want DVD support, because it's closed source and they can't ship it with the Linux installation. You've got to add it afterwards. And you've got Blu-ray VLC support, so that'll pretty much do that. If you've got optical audio, SPDIF, sometimes it can go to sleep, so once you've found your options, you can stop them from going to sleep, because if there's no audio, it'll just, for 5 minutes or whatever, it'll just shut it down. Evolution flush the outbox and stop the edge tiling, CD writing bug, a few other things that are there that I've been collecting for some time, and all I've got to do is do it and it'll do them. And I think this is probably going to be a good time to actually show you this working, because a lot of things that I want to do, if I wanted to remove all this, I'd have to go to the software manager. I'd have to find the various pieces of software, like transmission, and then I'd have to click on it and remove it, and I'd have to do that for all of these. Yeah, I'm just going to close that, and instead I can just use that command, paste that command in there with a list of all the stuff that I want to remove, and I can just go, it's not my usual, all this stuff is, some of it is not going to be installed because this is not there, hey ho. So it's going to remove some stuff and get rid of it. So it's going through the motions, that's done. While I'm here, I'm just going to install the DVD support by running these two commands. And if I wanted it, you can pause the video and screenshot any of this. It's going to ask me if I want to do that. Please run. It's going to tell me to do what I'm about to do anyway, which is run a command to do enable automatic upgrades. Yes. Processing triggers, blah blah blah, setting itself up. And now when I install VLC, I will be able to play DVDs in the system, provided I got a DVD player, of course. So now we will do the reconfigure. Please confirm whether you wish this to happen. Yes. So it goes and gets it. All done. Blu-ray support I won't add in a minute, but I will execute this, which will add in a lot of software, and we will go through this software and in subsequent videos and show you just what this can do. Yeah, which is why I copied over some things. Pigeon was installed, that went. Sound Juicer, I don't think that was actually installed. Yeah. This does make things easier. So if you've installed it for the first time, you would have to go through each of these, find them in the software library, and just install them. It would take you quite a few minutes to do that, possibly half an hour maybe. Whereas giving it this command, I'm able to talk with you now. I can do what I like, and this has gone off and it's starting to install, download all those packages from the repos, from the repositories, from the software library, and it's starting to install them. And then I can show you some of the extras that this is now installed. There's an awful lot of stuff that can be done is YouTube downloader in here, because that's an interesting one. Is YouTube downloader? I'll fire off another thing and see if YouTube downloader. Yes, it's there. YouTube downloader is a very interesting piece of software, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change into the videos again. It is command line only, because it would be too difficult to actually do via various things. I'm just going to go to YouTube, and I'm going to find my channel, customize. Before I continue to Google search. Okay, let's just switch that to DuckDuckGo. Let's just go to YouTube. That's one way of doing it. And we'll search for, for crying out loud, before you continue to YouTube, search customization off. I don't want any of this stuff. Manage the cookies in your browser. Okay, we'll confirm that. I'll do some other stuff later. But we're going to search for me, MS Night 5. We're going to take one of my videos, and we're going to copy the link. So you've got my life update video there. And I'm just going to tell YouTube download to go get that video. I'm just going to paste the link in there, and it should go off and download the video. And it can do that with all sorts. I mean, I've done it with Twitter links. I've just given the link to the Twitter post. It's gone and got the video. Facebook, got the link to that. It's done that. And various other things. I've just pointed it at the link to the page with the video on, and it's been able to download the video. As you can see by this taking 2 hours 48 minutes, it would take a while. So I'm not going to do the whole thing. But YouTube DL has been quite powerful. It's got various options, help, that can be used. And this is where the command line comes in. And you are, in the end, probably going to find yourself using the command line for things like these, to make stuff happen quickly, efficiently, effectively, and you can change how things come down. And you've got subtitle options. So I've got write sub. So in cases where there's been a foreign language video with subtitles, I can bring down the subtitles as well as the video. And then I've got the subtitle file as well, because sometimes the subtitles are embedded into the video, sometimes they're not. They're a separate file, and you've got to download that file. As you can see, there is so much that you cannot get all of these options in a little nice graphical user interface. So one of the things that you will find, we're not going to go too far into this. I'm just using this one to install all the software that I want to show you, that I would normally install, and show you that there's a lot of power and flexibility with using the command line, as we call it, or the terminal, because it can be a bit scary when you first use the command line and you first use the terminal, but the more that you get used to it, it becomes easier, and you can use it for a lot of automation, and ultimately it will allow you to do all sorts of things. PDF tools, for example, I've been able to take a PDF, split it into separate pages, edit pages, and then compile the whole thing back into another PDF, into a fresh PDF with the alterations that I've put in, without having to buy video PDF editing software. And it's for some people that's quite powerful because a lot of this stuff, I think we'll probably try doing it at some point, because there were some documents on that CD In fact, while that's still getting all this software, I'm still just going to do that. And we're actually later on going to go through the process. So we should see the DVD, we'll bring it into documents. We'll see the CD pop up in a moment. I can close this because I think we're finished with that. DVD support is in. We don't need the rest of it. So we're just going to take... we'll take the lot and just chuck it in there. Up will pop up the copying file thing, which you'll be used to. We don't need to do any of this other stuff. KDN Live is now a package, so we don't need that. Blu-ray VLC support. I haven't actually got a Blu-ray player in here, so we won't do it. That's got 3 minutes left. But later on, what you will now find is that a lot of this stuff has now expanded. There's some programming stuff in there. Accessories has gone quite a bit. There's some education, GNU Octave in there. Interactive programming, yeah. Oh, why have I done that one? Graphics, there's an awful lot more in graphics now. I think it's still installing stuff. There's a few extra bits and pieces in Internet. Some more stuff in Office. And one of the interesting things is GNU Cache. I'll introduce you to that one now. I think it's just going in now. Yeah, that's copying. There's an awful lot of stuff in here. Ocular has gone in. Still doing stuff. Contacts. Evolution, my email system. By the way, the one that I use. Programming sound and video. As you can see, there's a lot more stuff in here, including Brasero and Audacious. Sound converters in there. VLC is now in there. Handbrake is in there. That's very nice. Not much in the others yet. That is still installing software. That is now over, so we can eject the CD. Because we will get used to that. We'll take apart some of these PDFs. That's now finished. All that software is now installed. All those pieces of software are now in there. It's all gone in. So yeah, among them are the Ubuntu restricted extras. More extras. You've actually got a joystick testing system in there for joysticks, a DVD authoring system. KeyPass 2 for password safety. Yeah, all sorts. Oh, Blender is in there now as well. FileZilla is in. GPartEd is in. Clam antivirus. In fact, it's there twice. I've got to sort that out. RAR for various compression. PFS tools. All of these will probably be new to you. You will not recognize them. But that's fine. These are the alternatives to a lot of the other software. And it can help you in your day-to-day life. Where is the accessories? KeyPass 2, that's an interesting one. I'll just drop that down here, just for the heck of it. And I'm also going to drop down Office GNU Cache. Yeah. We'll close that. We're going to come back to a lot of this software and show you what a lot of this stuff does. GNU Cache, for example, is a very interesting one. It helps you to keep track of your bits and pieces. Welcome to GNU Cache. It has tips of the day, which I won't start up, but we'll close that. And we're going to create a new set of accounts. So what happens is you've got a new account hierarchy set up. I'm not sure if GNU Cache will run under Windows natively, but it's very interesting. New book options, accounts. You can use trading accounts if you're involved in more than one currency. Budgeting, business, but day threshold for read-only transactions. Choose currency. In our case, it's pound sterling. Next, choose accounts to create. Common account. The accounts in common account, so you can see what accounts go in there. So you've got education loan, a simple checkbook, business accounts, car loan, UK VAT account. We're just going to go with the common accounts. Selected, set up selected accounts. So you've got a checking account, savings account. We're just going to put the usual placeholders in there. You've got the usual stuff. Press apply to create the new accounts. It's going to ask us to save it. I'm going to put this in documents, and I'm going to put my accounts. And there we are. There are accounts, assets, equity, expenses, all the rest of it. So what I can do is I can open this account. It may not be edited. No, that opens that one. I need a new account, so I can put in my current account. For example, account code is pound sterling, notes, whatever. Parent account. Oh, that's under there. I don't actually want that. I want a new. Where am I? Yeah, it is under new, isn't it? New top level account. Oh, right, it's a new top level account. Current account, or just call it bank account. So we have bank account under there, and I can open it there. Accounts, I can then add another account to that. Again, top level, I can say savings, and you should be able to put an there's an opening balance in there. So yeah, so savings, for example, we can open that. Where is it? It's down there. So for example, I can say I've got my employer description, transfer. I can choose which one it is, which is income salary, and let's say I've got an increase of £1,000. There you go. That's the current one, and I can put in to savings. I can transfer that to the savings account. Let's decrease that by 100. I can put 100 in savings. That brings my balance down to 900, and if I look in the savings, that's now 100. And what you can then do is anything. I've got another one for my credit card, so if I spend anything, I can note it down. And what I'll also have is scheduled transactions. So any scheduled transaction that you know is going to happen, you can put a scheduled transaction in there, and it will automatically put it in. So things like if your wages come in every month, you know roughly how much that is, you can stick that in. Let's, for example, transaction editor, new scheduled transaction, wages, overview, the template transaction, when it is, and you've got frequency. So every frequency, monthly, start date every month on the 9th, except at weekends. So you can see when it's going to happen, and you can set up your template transaction. So you can set up when your wages go in, when your car insurance goes out, when your Netflix subscription goes out, and all that sort of stuff. And you can keep a track of your accounts and how much is coming in and going out. And you can use scheduled transactions to put them in, so you can see there's a red line current. So if I put in something, Netflix expenses subscriptions decrease by £20, whatever it is. You can see there's a blue line. So the blue line is where you are now. So if you put enough in ahead, then you can see what's going to happen, and you can see where you've got some conflicts, and you can start to get to grips with finances, and it helps with budgeting. Unfortunately, it can help a bit too much with budgeting, in that if it if you know that you've got some certain leeway, then it does allow you to sail too close to the wind, shall we say. But yes, and you can put that lot in there, and yeah, it just helps you keep track of things, what you're doing, any scheduled transactions, and any savings that you've got. And if you've got a credit card, you can keep track of your spending and how much you've actually spent that month, without actually having to go into some systems. Some people don't need this. They've got applications on their mobile phones already which are linked into their bank accounts, which will tell them live what's happening. But it may not be able to help with planning in terms of the regular what's going to happen. So yeah, that's where I find GNU Cache quite handy, and there's a number of other tools around. And at some point we're then going to go through the Office stuff in the next video, because we're running out of time, and some of the other applications. So to end this up, I would encourage, if you've got a machine that you can mess around with, download a copy of Linux Mint, install it, and get used to the various settings, the various controls, the system settings, running things around and changing things and finding things, because a lot of it is there that you would find. Oh, printers is one thing I wanted to do. There are no printers configured yet. There is actually a printer on the network, so I can add a printer, and it's find Windows printer. Oh, it's found it already. It's found the printer. There you go. AppSocket Jet Direct, and I could just put forward searching for drivers. Yeah, printers is one area where Linux really has a good way going forward. So there we go. That's the shorthand name. It's got the internal IP address, and that's it. That's the printer installed. USB printers, you could just plug them in. The one thing that it does sometimes have issues with is some of the conjoined printer scanners, which can sometimes cause a problem, and I prefer to use separate scanners to separate printers anyway. Like, it's got this added, I know that printer has got a scanner as part of it, but if I go to graphics and I try the document scanner, it can't see it. It can only see that unit as a printer, not a scanner. Network scanners are not easy, so it's easier to use a USB connected scanner and hope that it will pick it up. So that is one of the areas that you got to watch for, pretty much. Pardon me. Yeah, printing, fine. Scanning, depends on how it's connected. And that is probably one of the things that you will find through using Linux, is that the common hardware will probably work. Anything which is slightly outside the comfort zone, yeah, get hold of a machine which you're not using anymore, get Linux Mint installed on it, and see what you can do. Push the boundaries, attach some of your hardware to it, see if you can see it, see if you can use it, and that will give you an idea as to where your pinch points could be, and that way it will help you make some decisions as to where your give and take is, where you're likely to want to draw the line. Because typically some things have to be given up if you're going to come over to Linux. The support is growing. It's growing, and in some cases you could see just how easy it was to add that printer, and it's got the whole thing. Properties, it knows that printer, it knows its properties, its access printer options, it's got the whole thing. It's talked with it in tonal levels. They're not reported. Refresh. There we go. Printer said hello, and we now have the tonal levels, which are, I know, short on the cyan and yellow. I've got to get some. I've currently got it in black, in monochrome only mode for the time being, until I can afford another cyan cartridge. But yeah, it's talking to the printer, it's doing things. There are going to be, and now it's got the warning sign because it knows that there's toner running low. Oh joy. There are going to be areas where Linux won't work for you. Certain games are going to be difficult. Certain hardware where the manufacturer has just not supplied software for Linux. Things are changing, but it's still got a way to go. I mean, Logitech, I still can't control my Logitech mouse via Linux. I've got to hook it up to a Windows box in order to change the settings. Not the best. If you've got RGB keyboards or anything like that, you will probably find that it doesn't come with the software to control it. It's not straightforward. But yeah, we've got some alarms. If you now look down, you can see that there's a printer there. It can see the printer icon, and there's some alarms which are now telling me that the tone is empty. Yeah, so there's 2 notifications. Clear the notifications, and yeah. Incidentally, I will probably remove the user applet because I don't need it. A lot of the function there is mirrored here already, so I don't need that. And you can move things, delete them as you wish. It's worthwhile if you get a spare hour or 2 to download Linux Mint, get it installed on an old computer, and give it a shot, because it's pretty good. I mean, how old is this machine now? This is, let's have a look. I'm going to Firefox, and I'm also going to go for system information. System reports? Nope. Preferences. System info. Here we go. That's an AMD A10 580 KPU. And I'm going to change. Next thing I'm going to do is show you how some Firefox stuff in the next one. One thing I want to do at the minute is settings, which is changing my search to DuckDuckGo, and that will do that. There we go, search with DuckDuckGo. CPU benchmark, benchmarked it on, when did it benchmark it? Release date 2012. The processor that's running this is nearly 10 years old. Yeah, there you go. The processor that's running this is nearly 10 years old. So there you go. So if you've got a laptop or a desktop that's 3 or 4 years old, and you were going to toss it out in order to buy a new one because it was running too slow or whatever, then yeah, there you go. Get Mint installed on it and see what you can do. See where you go, pretty much. And there I will leave you until the next one. So take care of yourselves, and see you on the next video, when we're going to look through some more of the applications, typically the office-based stuff. And yeah, So until then, ciao for now.